Good morning. I want to welcome all of you to Mindset Growth Podcast. I am super excited for our next guest. This is a person that I've known for 24 years. I've seen tremendous change over those years, and there's probably some reasons why, which all of you will understand here shortly. But very excited to introduce Harrison Bontrager, my oldest son, to the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
This is awesome. This is kind of interesting to have you on. A lot of times we look for different guests, and I guess as I was looking at this, I was like, this would be a great one. Just seeing you grow up and then end up in the career that you've chosen. So get you started here a little bit. I've got a couple of rapid fire questions that I'm going to ask you, and this you know nothing of. So these are just kind of get you warmed up and get you excited.
Okay.
What's an excuse that you use all the time?
I can't. I have too much work to do. I can't make it.
Yeah, I've heard that. All right, we'll go to the next one. If you could kill any fashion trend, what would it be?
Ooh, there's so many. Probably Crocs. Everybody's wearing Crocs again.
That is actually pretty funny. Because you've got a family member that loves her Crocs.
I know.
Buys everybody Crocs. All right. What age do you want to retire and where?
I don't know what age specifically. I imagine I'll work to some extent for the rest of my life, but I definitely would like to have a vacation home somewhere outside of the city, maybe the Hamptons, maybe Florida, maybe Mexico. I don't know. That's too far away.
Well, and we should back up a step on that one and tell us a little bit about where you live, because you say you want to live outside the city. That raises a question for listeners to probably want to know where you live. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So currently I live in New York City, and I've been here for almost 2 years. So
excellent. Okay, the last one here before we get into it. What is the best advice you've been given?
The best advice I've been given has probably been when I feel something, when I take in information, to not let it overwhelm me and allow myself to feel an emotion, but not let it take over my entire house.
Take some time to process it and be logical about it. Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to get into what I actually sent you so that you can probably feel like you're a little bit more in control of this thing. Can you tell me what your morning routine is?
Yes. So my morning routine, I try to go 3 to 4 days a week, but I wake up at 5:30, go to the gym, and there from 6 to 7 usually, and then I come back, and I like to take my time getting ready, and I, shower, get dressed, make breakfast, and then I head out of the house around 8.
And what are some things, and you look back on your childhood, that has helped you along your path, foundational things maybe, or that got you to this point of life?
So I think there's a lot of things. And when I'm speaking to my father about this, there's a lot of things that I probably picked up from you and just the community and the environment that I grew up in, being a small town Iowan. So there's a lot of little things that I don't know if I can even pick out one, but something that stands out was when I first started working at the restaurant in town when I was 14 and I got my first job. I think there was a period where I grew up in this small community. Everybody knew me, everybody knew my family. And then to go get a job, I met a whole new set of people that really pulled me out of the element I was in and showed me there was a world bigger than where I was currently at. And in many ways, I could do a whole podcast just on that experience, but I really valued that job and that experience to pull me out of the community.
I look at the questions here and it looks to me like I'm skipping a tremendous part of your life, honestly, because the next question kind of sets us up, about your college internship. But really, with this, what you just said, working at that restaurant and meeting new people and expanding just your horizons and what your possibilities were, what I guess as you were going through high school, looking to transition into college, what were things kind of went different directions for you? But can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I always knew that I always knew that I wouldn't live in Kelowna forever, but I didn't really know what that looked like. And at 13, 12, 10, 14 years old, however old I was, um, it almost seemed a bit overwhelming. And really, I didn't know many people that had left the community. So I think once I got that first job, it opened my mind up. I met people who lived in Iowa City, which is the town near over the college town, so it was a little bit bigger. And I met a lot of interesting people who had different life experiences and were all there for different reasons. And I learned a lot about work there and how I think I enjoyed it so much that I dove headfirst into work and learned to work really hard because of it, because I enjoyed that experience. And I worked with them for 6 years. Um, so that opened my mind up. So then I was sitting at my senior year of high school and I did really poorly in school. And so I didn't have many options for college, but I knew I didn't want to stay nearby. So I went to a community college about 2 hours away from our hometown. And though I also didn't do very good in my classes there, it was the best experience for me at that time because I needed to get out and live on my own and figure out kind of who I was. And so I did that for a year. I came back home because I was also failing classes there and didn't think I could do another year of it. I worked a few jobs, that's first year out of the house. And then I came back and I really wanted to go to a big art school. So I started applying to different art schools, and there was one I had my mind set on, and I was determined to go. And they almost let me in, but I didn't have good enough grades to get in. So then I didn't know what I was going to do after that. I was living at home, working my high school job, had no college plans, didn't know what I wanted to do. So then I went to the community college nearby and I only intended to go there just for a semester to get my grades up to go to this other school. And I ended up falling in love with the interior design program there. And yeah, that's one thing led to another.
Right. And I'm going to take this opportunity to just for the listeners to realize that as they listen to this story about what you've gone through, it is absolutely the perfect example of even though the opportunities you wanted did not open up for you, you made the best of each one of them. And it really transitioned into additional opportunities that were probably eventually better than anything you could have even accomplished, getting what you really wanted early on. So it's a story of taking opportunities and chances and just taking those in front of you. And of course, as they listen to this, they're going to understand a little bit more about that statement. But I guess the one question that you commented, or one thing you commented on, I have a question for you about, because I think you're removed from high school in your first year of college. Why were your grades so poor? Because you became number one in the class not that much later.
Yeah, that's interesting because
and I'm going to ask you this question in front of all the listeners because I've been curious about this for quite a while.
Yeah. I think when I left, in high school, I had work ethic, but in high school, you're taught, you have to be book smart, and you have to be good at science to be good, and you have to be good at math. And then I went and I did gen eds at a community college for, again, math and science and language and whatever it was. Meanwhile, working, I was shooting photography, I was shooting weddings, and I was working multiple jobs on the side. So I had work ethic, but at the time in the academic world, I didn't think that I was smart or could do it. But I tried a few different things, and once I found design and interior design specifically, and I was in that environment that fostered growth, and I could work as hard as I wanted, and then that work would show for something. It wasn't just for a class that I really didn't care about. I was on, I was getting straight A's my last 2 years of, well, both years of interior design school. I had straight A's every semester. So
Right. Okay, well, that sets us up, kind of segues us into the next one. You had some fantastic opportunities for internships while in college. Tell us a little bit about that and what those experiences were and how they basically were open doors that you were able to walk through to kind of put you where you're at today.
yeah, this is such an interesting situation that I feel I was put in, because when I went to, backing up before I even get into the story, when I was applying to Kirkwood, I never thought a community college would get me to where I am today. But I was very lucky. I have a professor who works very hard and goes above and beyond, and she set up a study abroad trip for us to go to Australia. And before we left that trip, as she was planning it, I was scrolling through Instagram, following all these incredible design firms that, I had never gotten to experience before. And so I sent these on to her. I sent these Instagram profiles to her, and I said, hey, I really like a lot of these firms. Can you set up any meetings with these firms while we're over here? And she set up a meeting with a company called Alexander & Co. in Sydney. And we went in and toured the studio, sat down, the principal chatted with us for a bit, and we really meshed. And as I was leaving, I gave him my business card, because I had made business cards for this trip so that I could hand them out to people. And I handed him my business card, and I said, I would love to do an internship, blah, 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 blah. And a few days later, he sent me an email and said, hey, when are you starting? And so from there, then I went back. I started chatting with my professor. And,
can I just interject real quick or ask a question? Do you remember the phone call you made to me after that, immediately after that email?
Yes. Yeah. I remember exactly where I was. We were getting food somewhere.
Because you were still on this, on this school trip.
I was still on this trip. It was like, what, 4 a.m., I think?
Yeah.
I think I had woken you up. And I said, I'm moving to Australia.
Well, I'm going to give you my side of it. As I recall, I recall waking up, you just woke up. You woke me up and you said, Dad, I just got an opportunity to do an internship in Australia. What do you think? And do you remember what I told you?
No.
I said, why are you asking me this question?
Oh.
You know what you have to do.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, I know. I just was excited. Yeah. I had to tell you.
It was one of those things where it's like I still to this day don't understand how, the principle of that caliber of firm, it's like, yeah. Anyway, so.
Well, and just to interject here again, it's an opportunity. And I talk a lot of times with my listeners and clients about vector moments that just change direction and course of our life. Mm-hmm. That clearly was one of yours. Mm-hmm. It really set the stage and just changed the direction of your life. And I've always encouraged all of you kids to pursue opportunities. So carry on though. You were on that trip then.
Well, yeah, so we were on the trip. He offered me the job, and it was in that moment, it was like, this is my one shot. This is make it or break it. If I don't take this opportunity, then I'm going to go back and I'll never have this opportunity again. So, I went back, and I had a professor who believed in me because I still had an entire year left of school at this point. So we worked it out that I was working full time, and then I would submit my projects on the weekends. This is before COVID and work from home. So this was really weird that I was doing it at that time.
Right.
And she allowed me to finish my last semester in Australia as I was working full time. And then from there, they hired me on as a full-time designer. But then my visa expired, and so I had to come back to the States.
Well, and let's clarify that a little bit. You had a 6-month internship.
Correct.
And then at the end of those 6 months, they hired you on as an employee, and you extended your visa, which obviously 12 months was the maximum that you could do. So, so that was a little bit the time frame of what happened. And by the time you completed that whole process over there, you had finished school as well, correct?
Yes. So I was graduated once I left Australia. I was graduated and had worked there for a couple months. So that set me up then to move back to the States. And I was looking at moving back to the States, and I didn't know exactly where I wanted to be, but I knew the caliber of design that I wanted to work in and the sector of the industry I wanted to be in. And really, New York was the only option if I wanted to stay true to my goals.
And in that process of coming back, you were looking for another job. Can you go a little bit through? I mean, I'm going a little bit off of script here, but you came back to Iowa, and then I guess I can go into the next question. And you picked up and you moved to New York. But there's also, I think, some information that's interesting is how you landed with the company you were with, a little bit about it being a new branch in the United States. And can you give us a little history on the company you work for and how that process went? And also fill in how the relationships of over there in Australia, how those affected your employment here.
Yeah. So I've talked a little bit about, I feel to kind of go broad, I feel like I've had really great mentors in my life who have led me to the next step, into the next person. Like in high school, I had an art teacher who really pushed me creatively, which led me then to my professor, Jalissa, in college, who then led me to the principal of the firm I work for, Jeremy Bowl, over in Sydney. And I developed such a strong relationship with him as I was over there. And I still keep in touch with him today. Like, he's a great guy. And I think over that year of me, it was the first time I was out of my element. I had lived in Iowa for my entire life. So, I was in a new place, and I latched onto him in a way. And
well, he really became a father figure for you.
Yeah, really, at that time.
A big transition in your life, just being so far away from family.
Exactly. Yeah. It was my relationship with him is beyond just a professional relationship. It was really incredible the way it worked because, I don't think everybody works that way with their boss. But
sure.
So anyway, so coming back here, I had the full support of him, and he was pushing me to come to New York as well. And he knew he was trying to get me connections and blah, blah, blah. So once I came back here, I applied for this job. I currently work for Brian O'Sullivan Studio, and it's a UK-based company. They have an office out in London, but they were starting their branch in New York, and they had a head designer, and they were looking for one other designer to join their team. And so when I applied, I came and I had this portfolio from Australia that if I didn't have the portfolio from Australia, I wouldn't be getting the job. I wouldn't have gotten this job. So it goes back to how did I get from Kirkwood to here? Because without Australia, I wouldn't be here. But anyways, so I applied, and Jeremy gave me a great reference, and I started, and it was just me and my boss here in New York, and we've really launched it. Yeah, and now we've been here almost 2 years.
Well, and even to fill in a little bit of the gap on that, what's also interesting, I think that listeners would enjoy is the fact that as you move to New York City, COVID kicks off. You're the second hire of that firm. You had been looking at other larger companies, but because of that, they were doing layoffs, but you guys had projects to weather the storm. You ended up coming back, working from Iowa through COVID. And so a lot of things kind of came together for you there that
really, really they did, because I have a coworker who used to work at a firm that I applied to when I first came to New York, that she then got laid off right as COVID hit. Our whole industry was laid off. It's absolutely incredible that I was not in that position. So that also lined up in my favor. And then, I worked remotely for about 6 months.
Here's a question I'm going to throw in there that's not even in here. We're getting way off script, and I knew we would. But tell us a little bit about the projects and the things you actually do. I think would be interesting to the listeners because I know I have listeners that know you from when you were young and growing up, and to hear that, I'm not here to knock education, but you've got a story that really none of the education process went as you planned, but work ethic, a good attitude, and maximizing each opportunity really put you in a tremendous place. So what is it that you do now, just so that they understand what you've done, and even some of the travel you do for your clients to maybe, buy what it is that they need, and I'll let you go into that.
Yeah, so currently I'm working on mainly residential projects. I can't go too into detail, but I've got projects that are in Mexico. We've got a hotel in LA that I'm working on. I've got a few projects in the Hamptons, and then I've got a few projects in the city here in New York as well that I'm currently working on. And my job is everything from conceptualizing the space. So we'll get an existing layout of an apartment or a townhome or maybe a new construction, and then I work directly with the architects, and we modify layouts as needed, and then I do everything from detail your electrical plans to panel your walls with fabric for cinema rooms, to like custom carpet design. We do a lot of custom carpets. I work with artists and muralists to create sculptures and custom bespoke lighting. We create, logos for each project. So each home might have a monogram, and then we get stationery made. Like it's everything from the grand scheme of things, like what walls are we doing, to like the little fine details of custom letterheads for each bedroom.
But you also, I know, design some furniture for these clients?
Yes. Yeah. So that also includes bespoke furniture design. So I actually just this week was installing a project and was getting to see some furniture that I designed in person, and that's always really fun to do.
A little bit just to give some perspective, because obviously you grew up in a flyover state. We're probably the most conservative part of this country. And when we think of maybe an interior design, we're talking about spending 20 or 30,000 on kitchen cabinets as being high end. What are these projects for you? I mean, can you at least give us some prices to kind of give the listeners an idea? The level of things, like the chair you design, what it might cost, what a range may cost in somebody's kitchen, or even the value of the home that you work on?
Sure. I'm fortunate to have a very incredible list of clients, and that's on my boss. Our projects, I guess it just depends. Like A kitchen might be $300,000. One of, I mean, our homes range in size from a project that's 30,000 square foot home, or I've got another one that's 14,000 square feet, and
And
the
this is
furniture
and this
packages.
and this is
Hmm?
thousand, not hundred. I'm just wanting to make sure the listeners
Yes,
understand that
30,000
because
square
where we
feet.
live, we would have that would be hundreds, not thousands.
300.
Well, I'm just saying they're
um,
a lot smaller here generally.
yeah, it's an interesting world to come from that to this. I sometimes feel like I have to pretend like I'm playing the part, but I just installed a $2 million furniture package in a home. So yeah, it's a higher caliber, a finer attention to detail. Yeah.
Well, and then tell us a little bit about one of your, because I had planned to come see you this summer, but you had all of a sudden a trip come up that you needed to take to
Yes.
pick out, I don't know, was it furniture or wall coverings for a client? Can you tell us a little bit
Uh-huh.
about where you went to do that and a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
So
Give
I've
them
been
perspective.
fortunate. I've been fortunate to have clients. So my boss, one of our clients was going over to Europe to do a shopping trip at antique stores. So I went over to Europe, to London, and I stayed in London and worked in London for a week over the summer for two separate projects. I was developing renderings at that time for meetings that we had in London with our clients that week.
Okay.
So that was a
Well,
fun experience,
right.
fun perk.
Well, I know it's the things you work in are completely different than anything that you grew up dealing with or working with. So it's exciting for a parent to see a child find that success. And we talk about all the successes you've had. I've also seen the heartbreak. I did the 18 or 20-hour drive to visit that school you didn't get accepted to with you.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of fun to see some things come
Yeah.
together. It's just not a traditional path, and I hope it gives our listeners hope that they can understand that you take opportunities and make the best of them, and often it
Hmm.
can lead you down a better path. It comes back to attitude a lot of times. Uh,
Yeah, it's definitely saying talking about it today. It seems very polished and happy and everything's easy, but um, it's just knocking down one challenge after the next, and really looking back when I started Kirkwood or even in high school, I never could have imagined that this is how it would have gone. I really did think I needed to go to school, so I think it's an important thing that we realize that you don't need to be in school to be successful. And I say that all my coworkers have incredible degrees, but hard work is a big part of it.
right, right. Doing the right thing, having character, and working
Hmm.
hard. This kind of sets us up because of talking about that whole process to the next question. So, how does your decision making process work? What are some steps and things you go through? It's kind of interesting to ask somebody so young because I think the older a person gets, you kind of look back and have more data or history to look at, that there's different processes that you kind of tend to start to put in place. And I just know that at my age, I make decisions much differently than I did when I was your age. But tell me a little bit about that because you're working with situations that are very different than what you would have, 2 and 3 years ago. So, what is that process for you?
Hmm. Um, I think, well, one thing that stands out is I remember from you growing up, you would always say, what is it? A okay decision now is better than a great decision later.
Yeah, a good
And
decision today is better than the best decision tomorrow
yeah,
because
yeah,
we
yeah.
we can live with good decisions every day.
Hmm. And that comes to mind, but I also think not that I was ever forced out of what, to take it broad, big picture, I was never like forced to leave where I wanted to, but I felt like I had this intrinsic motivation to want to leave and want to do better for myself and want to experience the world. And so I think a lot of my decisions have been based off of that and moving forward. On more of a day-to-day base, I guess I don't know.
Well, I'll just summarize, I think, what I'm hearing you say, and you can tell me if this is right or not. You had goals on what you wanted to accomplish. So you made decisions based on what was going to take you down that path to accomplish what you wanted to do. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
It might not be so much of how the process is. This arose and now, but you still had goals in life, and without those goals, you wouldn't be where you're at today, clearly. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how I see it. And I know this is kind of new to you to do one of these. So, and I know sometimes but that's I think to the listeners, that's a number one step. When I work with clients is we first have to know where we even want to go. And you had really started to set that at a younger age. So you had a good idea. So, and the fun part is, as you get older, you look back, you really have no idea how you're going to get there. You just don't. And yet things start to unfold and you're it's like, wow, that was interesting. And that sets us up for the very next thing is goals. Influential things that helped you set them, or a process to stick to them. I don't know. Some people are more detail oriented and, journal and lay out plans and write out plans. And some are, I tend to more or less just put them in my head and I'll jot them down, but they're more general than some folks. How does that work for you?
Yeah. So okay. So one story this actually sticks out in my mind quite a bit. When I was looking to come back to America, I was deciding between what city I wanted to go to. And I had a friend down in Atlanta who recommended a few firms I was looking at. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that New York was where I needed to go if I wanted to work on the level and the quality of design that I desired to work on. And I was having a conversation with my boss, Jeremy, and I was telling him, pros and cons, like New York's really expensive. It's the subway. I'm going to have roommates. I'm going to have to all these things, like it's not going to be comfortable. Or I could go to Atlanta. I've got a friend there. It would be easy. I could get my own place, blah, blah, blah. And he looks at me and he says, what decision's going to get you a coffee table book? And in that moment, I knew I needed to go to New York. But the backup of that story is that previously I had told him, someday I'm going to have an interior design coffee table book with my name on it, published by Rizzoli. And so ever since then, he kind of used that. And I distinctly remember that conversation because when I think about minor decisions, if I keep in mind what decision is going to get me a coffee table book, it's not that that's the end all be all, but if I keep making small decisions on a day to day that align with what's going to get me a coffee table book,
right,
someday it leads me. It's already, I'm amazed at the level of work. I'm so fortunate to be working where I'm working. So,
well, I think that's interesting. And that really falls into a lot of what I recommend with the clients I work with. We're back to number one, we have to set goals, but you went and took the extra step, and you also basically had yourself an accountability partner that was going to hold you accountable. And so often what I run into when I coach people is you do need to have somebody that has that kind of a third party view that is not as vested in it as what you are, but they can kind of see it from a broader perspective. And I find that real interesting that you were able to have him help you stay on track to what your goal really was, because at the time you were becoming tunnel, you were getting in a position of having tunnel vision, and he was able to keep that broader perspective for you. So the next
Yeah.
one we're going to lead to a little bit. What are some influential people in your life growing up and why? I guess you can kind of go, if you want to go back when you were like in elementary, you can go to college, kind of
Mhm.
wherever. I don't really care. I'm just curious. I think it's fair to recognize folks that make a difference in our lives. And so I think, who
Yeah.
are some of those folks and in what way did they impact you?
Yeah. Well, obviously, my parents have both had a massive impact on my life. So that's number one. And I have to say that because I'm on your podcast. So, but no, I look back and I think the first person that showed a real interest in me and an interest in my capabilities was my art teacher in middle school, Erin Kirchhoff. And she, as I went through middle school and then in high school, like I would eat lunches in the art room. I spent as much time in the art room as I could. And then she ended up hiring me on to be, she photographed weddings on the side, and she really taught me how to shoot photos and believed in me and encouraged me in a creative field that I didn't really understand, because I thought before having that interaction, I always thought I had to go into business, or I really thought I was going to take over your insurance agency, which I'm very happy I'm not doing that. But,
So am I.
but, so I think she was the one who really in my early days was encouraging me to be creative. And I never had somebody, show me that that was even an option. So I think she was there. And funny enough, now that I'm having this memory of, she stayed up with me one time while I was writing my acceptance, or not my entry letter into that design college. She stayed up with me till like 3 a.m. one day to help me write this letter at her house as we were editing pictures. And she just put so much more effort into me than I even thought I needed. And so she then led me into finding Kirkwood. And then I was fortunate enough to have Jalissa Mormon, who was the interior design professor at Kirkwood. And we meshed.
Let's back up. What was her name? I think it's fair that
Jal- Jalissa Mormon.
No, I mean your teacher that you worked with.
Erin Kirchhoff.
Okay.
The Lockett photography. She's incredible. She's done so much.
Yep. I know she really invested in you.
She did. And I also then, she led me up to a certain age. I photographed with her for 5 years, I think, almost 5 years after high school. I worked with her, and while I was in high school.
Okay.
And then once I started college, like as I said, Jalissa, my professor, really took an interest in me. And I remember one of the first meetings I ever had with her before I started the program. I sat down in her office and I said, I want to be the best student that you've ever had, and I want to work that hard. So it was almost like, I expect you to work as hard as I'm working, because I want this more, like I want to be the best that you've ever had. And she still brings that up almost every time I see her. But she then, not only did she set us up to go on these trips, she then got me to Australia, but then did a whole bunch of background work to allow me to even go and take on the internship at that time. And without that level of work, I wouldn't have been able to go. So she invested a lot in me too, and it's really incredible. And then I think I've talked a bit about Jeremy and my relationship with him, but
and even
he
with,
again showed me.
And to back
so
up
much.
again with Jalissa real quick, there again, you verbalized your goals, and she held you accountable to that to succeed and reach that goal. Just want to share that with the listeners, because it's just another story of accountability and how important that is. Sorry to interrupt you on Jeremy. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. But yeah, so then once I landed in Australia, it's so much more than a professional level, but on a personal level, took so much interest in me at a time that I really needed, it. And he's pushed me in so many ways and taught me so many things that I I don't think, well, I for sure wouldn't be where I am without having that experience and without his mentorship. So, it's like one thing has led me to the next. And I'm so thankful for all those people.
Well, that's awesome. I think it's always fair to recognize those that make a difference, and also fair for us to look for opportunities to pass that on to somebody else later in life. So I'm sure you'll have those opportunities coming up your direction as time passes. A next question I have for you, I guess, who are some of the influencers you follow now and why? Maybe some industry folks that, or just motivational people.
I follow a lot of interior designers, a lot of different interior designers, but I'm gonna open up my podcast app because I'm thinking of one guy, Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness. That podcast I really like.
Okay.
And then, sorry, I was not as prepared as I thought I was. There's one more podcast that I really like, and that is Sean Stevenson's the Model Health Show.
Okay.
I really like that one as well. He's good.
Okay. And then if you mention those guys, is this the type of thing you listen to them pretty much on a weekly basis when you're maybe in the subway or?
Yeah, I listen to them at work when I'm modeling or doing drawing floor plans or something like that. I'll listen to them.
Give you the inspiration you need to bring out your best work.
Yeah, that or Dateline. It's either that or I listen to a Dateline podcast.
That may impress you.
It's interesting.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast. I knew this was going to be a fun time, or it's fun for me. It's just a really quick, small snapshot of really some of the things that you've gone through. But I hope this is inspiration, not only, for my listeners, but it's just for anybody who maybe hears it, in the future as well. Just the fact that we really cannot detail or encapsulate the journey that you went through to sit where you're sitting today. So if there's folks who really don't know, maybe even have the direction of where they want to go or what they want to accomplish, you can certainly overcome a tremendous amount. I'll go back to another person that you've maybe kind of met them generally, but I had a friend growing up that's actually an architect. And when you were, I think, 6, 7, 8 years old, he was back for, I think, 4th of July or something, and we were having a cookout, and I was telling him how you're artistic and you're always trying to draw and design things. And he actually gave me a link to a free SketchUp.
Yes, SketchUp.
And I took an old computer and put it on there, and you would redesign the house at 9 and 10 years old completely on that program.
Exactly.
And you spent
I used that
hours.
program I spent hours doing that, and I use that program every single day for my job. As I end this call, I'm going to go and sit on SketchUp. So yes, he was my introduction.
Right. And and he's actually in Germany today doing.
Oh, really?
Same thing. He was in Minneapolis many years, and now he's in Germany. But to me, it was just real interesting how, I recognized you had artistic abilities and you enjoyed doing those things. And to me, it was almost, we didn't have all the video games and things that you guys have, the kids have today, but you played with SketchUp more than you ever played, Diddy Kong or whatever other games you had at the time.
That's really funny to think about. I kind of forgot about that. That's funny. I definitely did. And I still am every day in SketchUp.
I just remember how much time you spent on that, and know that really helped. And I also remember the day you called me telling me, "Dad, you won't believe this. This is now the program I use." And it's it's hard for all my classmates to try to adapt and adjust to it, but like I'm just showing them how to use it because you'd already used it.
Even through school. Yeah. It came on so easy because I had used it when I was a kid.
Yeah. So, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
Yes,
and,
you as well.
I enjoyed doing this interview with you. So thank you.
Yeah, it's fun. Thanks. Okay. See you soon.